Good morning. It's my pleasure to call this meeting to order. I'm Erica Groshen. I'm the Commissioner of Labor Statistics here. And it's my honor to welcome you and say that we're really pleased to be convening the 50th anniversary conference of the NLS. What an amazing moment. Imagine the people who got this going. Thinking about what this would be like. Well, we're here. And we're really glad that all of you are here to be with us to celebrate this event. Because this data series is clearly among the most important and widely used longitudinal sources of information in the social sciences. And if BLS's purpose is to help Americans make smarter decisions, then the NLS is a shining example of that. Think of all of the policy decisions that the NLS has helped inform over these 50 years. The number is huge. Some of them directly and many of them indirectly by just adding kind of validation of stylized facts that people use in common discourse. So 50 years ago, the predecessor of DOL's Employment and Training Administration, which was called the Office of Manpower Automation and Training, sponsored the first 4 NLS cohorts. And the idea was to study 4 groups that had particular challenges in the labor market. Right? These were older men who were making retirement decisions, so they were in that transition. Adult women who were returning from the labor force after raising families, making those decisions, those transitions, and young people of both sexes who were just entering the labor market. So highly targeted on these really transitional times when we needed to know more about what was in people's minds and what activities they were engaging in. And these studies were going to take a fairly new approach at the time, following the same people with regular interviews over an extended period of time. And at that point, 50 years ago, extended period of time was 5 years. Right? But after 5 years of doing this, the value of the effort and the really high retention rates that were achieved led to continuing the studies. And in fact, the women's cohorts were interviewed for another 30 years, which by itself is amazing. The NLS program then came to the BLS in the mid-1980s. When the ETA found it could no longer support the NLS, then BLS Commissioner Janet Norwood, who we lost just this spring, realized the value of these data sets to the research and policy communities. And so she agreed to sponsor them within the BLS. So while it's the 50th anniversary of the NLS overall, it's also the 30th anniversary of the NLS at BLS, which is something to celebrate. And the success of the original cohorts led to the creation of the cohorts that are still being interviewed today. The NLS Y79, along with its child and young adult supplement, and the NLS Y97. We're currently finishing up fielding the NLS Y79. By the end, we will have interviewed almost 80%, that's 80% of the original sample members who are still alive after 36 years of interviewing them. This retention rate, like most BLS response rates, I should add, are unprecedented. And particularly unprecedented for longitudinal social science surveys. And it's a tribute to the persistence and the hard work of the survey personnel and to the clear value created by the program. Right? Our interviewers can go back to the people who participate and show them how important this information is. So they've created a dedication in our NLS respondents, which is really key. This program is unique among BLS data products in a number of ways. For one thing, they're unusually broad, right? They ask not only about labor markets and training, but also about education, earnings and wealth, family life, child care, use of government programs, substance abuse, crime, and pro-social behavior. So we're getting just an incredible background of information. And this allows researchers to study behavior not only across time, but also across multiple domains and make those connections that we all need. To see, for example, how family life and education as a child affects employment and earnings later in life. It's very interesting to note that another way in which NLS really stands out is because the main direct output of the NLS program is something that the public can't use very directly, which is the microdata, right? The data are easily found on the internet. They could if they wanted to, or if they had the skills to do it, but most people don't have the time, the skills to do that. So that makes the NLS really fundamentally a cooperative effort between BLS and the researchers and analysts who use the data. Right? We create the data, provide it, right? And researchers produce the studies to inform policymakers and all of us about myriad aspects of life in the United States. Confirming or challenging inferences gleaned from cross-sectional studies or anecdotes or newspaper reports, right? Providing new facts that are undetectable or tests that are impossible in less rich sources. That's what the NLS gives us. And really, to the point, helping to ground policy and even personal decisions in evidence in a way that would be impossible without the NLS. So far, researchers have produced over 3,700 journal articles, 1,100 PhD dissertations, and countless book chapters, working papers, and reports. The BLS is cooperative in that sense, between the NLS is cooperative in that sense between BLS and the researchers. It's also cooperative in the sense that so many other federal agencies and outside organizations have contributed funds to the NLS. It hasn't just been the BLS. Among our many sponsors have been agencies in the Departments of Justice, Defense, Education, HHS, and of course labor. We've also received support from the National Science Foundation, the Kaufman Foundation, and the Templeton Foundation. So I want to thank all of those groups for the really important contributions they've made over the years. And I want to offer special thanks to the NICHD, who sponsored the really fascinating NLSY child and young adult surveys since 1986. That's been huge. And this is another example of the amazing cooperation in the program. Basically, seeing the value of the multi-generational data the NICHD proposed following the children of women in our sample. And among other things, the research coming out of this data has taught labor economists about the effects of children on female labor supply, and child development specialists about the effects of working mothers on their children, again, uniting these different domains. So in conclusion, let me thank some other folks as well. I want to thank the NLS staff here at BLS. We have, of course, Jeff Groshen, who's just taken over, and Chuck Pera, who led NLS so well for so long. We even have an older leader.
Mature. One of the older cohorts.
And of course, the contractors, of course, from CHRR and NORC, who are responsible for the planning of the surveys and the everyday details, and we know how important it is to get all of those right, of interviewing the same people over such long periods of time. And thanks to Catherine Abraham, who supported the program and got the NLSY 97 off the ground during her tenure as BLS Commissioner. We're really fortunate to have her here this morning to moderate a session highlighting government and private uses of data. And even though if they're here, we wouldn't acknowledge them, I want to thank the respondents to these surveys. Year in and year out, they've shared their lives with us by answering all of our sometimes intrusive questions. Without their generosity, without their patriotism, there would be no NLS. And I can say with certainty that policy to address labor market issues would be much the worse for it. Thanks also to the many analysts whom I can acknowledge here, who helped us learn so much about our labor markets, our families, and society, who've really picked up the ball that BLS and others have passed to them. And last but most immediately, thanks of course to all the staff who helped organize this conference. So to get things started, I want to introduce Mike Horrigan. Mike, as I'm sure you know by now, is our Associate Commissioner of Employment and Unemployment Statistics and a past director of the NLS program. And he's going to start off the discussion about the history of the NLS program and where we see the program going in the future. I wish I could spend the entire day with you. I'm going to spend a few minutes now, but thank you so much for coming and for your support for the NLS and your use of it in the past, and I look forward to many more fruitful interactions going forward. Thanks a lot.